I would like to welcome Tom Gunter to this CEO conversation. Hey, Tom, it's so great to have you with us today. I know you're a very busy guy, so on behalf of everybody who's listening, watching, want to thank you for making the time to be with us, Tom. So welcome.
Oh, thanks very much, John. It's great to join you today.
Yeah, well, great. Well, we're going to tap into your wisdom here in the next, 15, 20 minutes. I'm gonna fire some questions at you. They will focus on leadership, and you've had a tremendous career. So being able to have a one-on-one session with you where we can learn from you, learn from your experiences, learn about some of the people that you've had an opportunity to learn from in your career too, eh? And
For
so,
sure.
but just before we go there, for the benefit of people who are with us, let me just give them a couple of bullet points around your successful career, and should mention graduate of Ryerson, business out of Ryerson, and then you started your career. And when we first met, you had been your previous responsibility was you were the general manager EVP of Fiera Foods, right?
That's correct.
Uh, and prior to that, you were the president of ConAgra. And if my memory is right, you joined ConAgra in 2004, and a short 5 or 6 years later, you were made president of the company, the Canadian operation, and were very successful in introducing some well-known brands, and Healthy Choice being one of them. I mean, I've been a Healthy Choice person for many, many years. Orville Redenbacher, I mean, who hasn't had that? And so, you kind of transitioned the company into some new brands while you were there, didn't you, Tom?
Yes, no, it was a great experience. And to this day, ConAgra is really doing some great things in the marketplace. So it's great to see it continuing.
Yeah, yeah, and prior to that, if I can just go back a little further in your history, Tom, and then I won't go any further, right? But you had a very successful leadership career with Molson's, and with Frito-Lay Pepsi. Am I
Right.
am I getting that
Yes,
right?
that's
And
right.
and ran their sales organizations both Canada and US, right? So a lot of strong sales and marketing background. We're fortunate at CEO Global Network to have you on our team as a group leader and mentor of CEOs, and it's just great to have you with us, and have you bring all your experience to the CEOs that you're helping get to where they want to go in their career, have the success that you had. And I know you sit on a number of boards now, and are bringing your wisdom to those boards. And I won't list them all down. I know it's a number of them. So the point is, you're a pretty busy guy. And and by the way, you're a father, a husband. You got a lot, like, grandchildren. I asked you
Yes,
before we got
grandchildren
started.
for sure.
Yeah, I asked you before we got started, what do you love to do when you're not working? And you mentioned tennis. You mentioned tennis, but then you really underlined the fact that you love spending time with your grandkids, and
Absolutely.
and chasing them around to make sure they don't get in any trouble, right? But thank you, Tom, for being with us. It's just great. And if let's get started on the questions, right?
Sure.
I've got about 5 or 6 questions that I just wanted to ask you, and really the first one is, when you think about a business quote. I mean, I love business quotes. A lot of CEOs, executives love business quotes. When you think about a business quote that maybe has some meaning for you, is there something that comes to mind? Kind of off the top of your head. Here's a quote that kind of resonates with me.
Yeah, the one that for me was probably more of a sports quote, but it applies to business, and it's about credibility. And it comes from John Wooden, the late John Wooden, basketball coach for UCLA. And he really said the most powerful leadership tool you have is your own example, which is really about walking the talk. And you make a lot of changes in organizations. You get up there and talk about what we're going to be about. And in order to make that really happen, people need to see that you're living it yourself. And that's really what John is saying with that quote. So I think it's very appropriate for what I believe in as a leader.
It's a great quote, eh? Like lead by example. It's what you do, not what you say, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
100%. Yeah, John Wooden. What a terrific! I think I've read every book on John Wooden
Yeah.
that's ever been written. A couple of them by him, eh? And
Yes, for sure.
terrific lessons on leadership in there. No question about it. Eh? It starts with how you tie up the running shoe, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yep. Every year at the beginning of the season, he goes through that. Yeah, absolutely. So how many bosses have you had over your career?
You know, I did.
How many would you have had? Yeah, I mean, is it 40? Would you have had 40 bosses over your
Yeah,
career?
I did count them at one time, but it's probably close to 40. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and you know what? I mean, great bosses and even some bosses who maybe weren't my favorite. You'll learn something from them all. And
Well,
maybe in some cases it's how you don't want to be led.
that's exactly right. I mean, that really resonates with me. I can remember vividly as a young man things that I saw that just didn't sit right with me, and I never forgot them. These are
Oh, you did.
leadership lessons, what not to do, eh? What not to do. But I want to focus on if you had to pick best leader of all time for you, best boss.
Mhm.
Um, and don't need names. You're welcome to name the
Right.
person if you like, if you're comfortable, but don't need them. Don't need that. Who was the best boss you ever had? Sort of, yeah, but what? Not who, but who? What were their
Right.
qualities? What were the qualities, Tom, of the best boss out of those 40 or so that you've
Yeah.
had? What bounces off the page for you?
Yeah. Well, it's you're in, but I would say in the later stages, maybe mid stages, as I was starting to manage people, I had a boss who was really good at providing a lot of his time, as much time as I needed, and seldom he would ever give me the answer, but he would ask outstanding questions that were very thought provoking, and really led me to think clearly about what I think the solution might be in developing different options. He did hold me accountable and really supported my development. But what I think I enjoyed the most is he really cared sincerely about people, and it came out. It wasn't something that was put on. He really did care, and he would even check in with you to make sure that you had what you needed, and he would check in to make sure that what you talked about you followed up on. He was a terrific leader to work with, and unfortunately he has passed away, but left me with a lot of really good learning as a leader.
That's wonderful. You must think of them from time to time, right? And
Definitely.
because look at the work that you're doing now, mentoring so many CEOs today. I mean, the secret there is asking the right questions, asking good questions, holding them accountable on you.
Yeah.
And you probably took that all through your career too, eh? In terms of modeling yourself after that person, right?
No, for sure. I mean, it's a bit of a journey to get to that level of
It's a
of
journey.
being good at it, but it's never, it never stops. But yeah, he was somebody that made a huge impression on me for sure.
The learning never stops. Absolutely. Yeah. So you do work with a lot of CEOs today. You sit on a lot of boards, and you see what the CEOs of those companies are wrestling with. You're mentoring CEOs. You see what they're wrestling with today. What is the number one thing in your experience, like right now? What is the number one thing that is keeping CEOs up at night?
Well, there's some unique ones that are popping up right now, but the one that's recurring always, John, and I'll add a bit to it, is attracting and retaining talent. And I would even say in some cases right now is affording, because right now compensation is being a real challenge for a lot of people. They have to rethink how they're rewarding their employees and making sure they're keeping the best talent possible. So I would say that's something that has been recurring for a long time, and it's even getting more challenging today.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it is, Tom. I'm sure it is. And this may be a bit of a redundant question because you may, relate back to the best boss you ever had. But if you put it in today's context, what are the top two or three qualities of a highly successful CEO today?
Well, the one that comes to mind first for me is just trust and ethics. Somebody who's ethical, that when they're speaking, that people respect, and they know they're gonna hold themselves accountable. Um, I think the second one would be just having the right vision for the business. I mean, it's very easy to get distracted right now, especially with everything that's gone on in the last couple of years. And just if there's a third one, John, I would say just being an excellent two-way communicator, being able to communicate succinctly with people, but just as important, if not more important, is listening and and learning from your team. So those would be the most important in my mind.
Well, those are terrific. Those are terrific points, terrific qualities. How important do you feel, when you've mentioned a couple of things, my mind went to the word connected, connected. Like you must have felt very connected to that best boss you ever had. And those qualities that you just mentioned, the two-way communication, the listening, you know, how important is it to be connected to the people that are on your team?
I think it's critical. I mean, something that some people who work with me have over here remember this point I used to always make, which about if you have your relationship is like a bank account, never be an overdraft. And I always say, always be making deposits because once in a while you are going to have to make a withdrawal, but if it's in the right, if people have a trust in you because of all the deposits you've made, it just makes those conversations that much easier because they trust you. And that's kind of in my mind, the base of the connectivity. I think it's just having the trust with people that they can count on you to be giving them the straight goods and that you're there to support them when they need you.
Yeah, 100%. Those are great. Those are great points, Tom. When you think, being a CEO before the pandemic hit, right? February 2020, it was pretty tough being a CEO. It was lonely. It's lonely at the top, right? Lots of challenges, lots of stress.
Yeah.
Lots of stress in a CEO's life. And here we are, like almost 2.5 years later, and it's a different world today. And
Sure it is.
there are many qualities of CEOs that probably continue, like they were important then, they're important now. There certainly are. But do you feel that there are qualities in in that sort of post-pandemic, if you will, I don't know whether we're post-pandemic, but where we are today in the pandemic and where
Right.
we're maybe going, are there qualities that you think have become more important? Is there a new quality that has come in, for the person leading the company? Are there qualities that are really critical today, and are there any new ones?
I mean, yeah, the qualities you talked about for sure still are relevant today, but the one that I would say, based on all the conversations I've had over the last couple of years, is adaptability. The ability to adapt, because it's just, you've seen people overuse the word pivot, but people have had to pivot a lot in their business, either changing their total business plan to accommodate what was happening in the market. So I think the ability to adapt and I think with the employees and what a lot of people have gone through over the pandemic, I really think you need to have a conscience. You need to be somebody who really is able to, I use the word empathy, I suppose would be the better way to put that, but you need to understand what people are going through as part of the adaptability, because to move your business to where you're going to keep the best employees and not lose them, especially with what's going on right now with the great resignation, as everyone's talking about. People want to know that their leader understands where they are, and still holds people accountable, but is able to put themselves in other people's shoes. I think that's more important than it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely. Put yourself in other people's shoes, and that touches on a word that has really skyrocketed in the last couple of years, and that's empathy, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
putting yourself in other people's
absolutely.
shoes, understanding where people are coming from, understanding their emotions, and so on, and that's exactly what you're hitting on, isn't it? When you mention adaptability, I think of myself, and you've probably heard me say this to you, but out of the 15 emotional intelligence skills. Okay, there's 15, and you rank order,
Yeah.
right? You do the self-assessment, you rank order them. Well, my lowest score, Tom, is flexibility. Okay, so that's kind of like adaptability, isn't it? Flexibility,
Yeah.
adaptability. But I'm working on it, Tom. The good thing is, with EQ, you can get better at any age on this stuff, So I'm still working on it, and
Well, nobody's read any more books than you, John. So I'm sure you're working
nobody's
hard.
read any more books. Well, that's probably true. But the thing is, it's a great point you make. You've got to be nimble. You've got to be adaptable these days because, it's a moving target, isn't it? It's a moving target, and the speed of change has just gone, exponential, right? Just exponential. The last question I just want to mention to you, and then we'll wrap up, Tom. And thank you so much for being with us and sharing these thoughts with us. But if there was one thing, and it's probably something you mentioned already, but it'd be good to highlight it. Like, let's put it in neon lights, if you will. If there was one thing that you feel is critical to being a successful CEO, and I know it's hard to boil it down to one thing, but if as a aspiring CEO listening to this, as a CEO who wants to get better, if there was one thing to focus on, what is it, Tom, in your opinion, based on all your experience?
It's probably two things together. And I'm coining a phrase here, John, but I'm going to call it intuitive listening, where you're listening to people and your experience and intuition of being in various situations over a period of time allows you to very quickly assess the situation with that individual or the business that they're talking about. But you really need to listen carefully, because it's not just about what they're saying, it's how they're saying it. And it's so difficult on Zoom and on Microsoft meetings to pick up some of the nonverbals. So it's really going to test people in terms of their listening skills and their intuition about the people they're talking with. So I would put that as something that's very critical right now. And frankly, listening is always important. So
listening's always important. No, that's right. But what you're saying is intuitive listening, like almost listening between the lines, Tom, and
right.
And really leaning in to seriously listen and understand what the other person is saying and where they're coming from, right?
Right. Exactly.
Well, that's a great takeaway. And Tom, we're going to have to wrap up, but on behalf of everybody that is learning from your comments this morning and who's been either listening or watching, want to thank you on behalf of them. Want to thank you on behalf of myself, because I've learned from you. I got some solid takeaways over this last few minutes with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, Tom. So with that, have a great day, and thanks again for being with us. Take care.
Thanks, John. You as well. Have a good one.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
You bet. Bye now.
Bye-bye.